And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stupid Criminals number 3. So, first case today. Christopher Wilson, age 25, came up with a plan to steal $8,000 from Home Depot. And actually, it worked. He was successful at getting the tools out to his car, and then he left. He stole a lot of tools that were stored in the back area, the new freight that had just come in. Basically what he did was he basically took everything right off of a pallet, so it never actually made it into the store and got put on the shelves. He was successful at it, but in his getaway and on surveillance, it shows a gentleman going from the back door out the doorway itself, loading the stuff into it's kind of like an SUV, I guess a mini station wagon kind of like vehicle, and he got away with it. But in the hasteness of his crime, he dropped his identification, and he dropped his methamphetamines. Yes, 2 baggies of meth. Did not give a street value of meth, but he was promptly arrested. Next. Okay, for this stupid criminal, I have to actually get out the whiteboard because it makes it easier for you to follow along. So, on October 3rd, the police were called to the McDonald's in downtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, for a complaint of assault on an employee. So we'll start off with police. All right. The police are called. They go to McDonald's. All right. When they get to the McDonald's, they find out that an employee by the name of Sarah L., they didn't give her complete last name, so Sarah L. was assaulted at the McDonald's. All right. Now, when they take the report, she writes out her statement that this is what she wrote on her statement, that a customer had come up to the counter and had complained that her chicken nuggets were not made correctly. The register receipt showed that the customer had purchased chicken nuggets, a medium soda, and a large fry. And Sarah was actually working the counter, so Sarah took the order. All right. And then the customer complained. All right. Following along here. I'm going to go back this way. So the customer complained that the order was made incorrectly, and when Sarah told the customer that they had to wait 3 minutes for the food to be made, she was assaulted. I'm still here. Okay, so she was assaulted by the customer at that point. She said the customer then left the restaurant on foot and had left. The police take their report, finish up, get ready to leave. The police then receive a call from a complainant who wants to file a complaint that a restaurant had defrauded her of her actual value for what she had paid for, and she wanted the police to make it right. Now, the police actually got a 911 got a call. They dispatched the police because of this call. So 911 call. They get the 911 call. They go to another location to take the report of this, customer's complaint that they were defrauded of the value of what they paid for. They go, and that leads them to Samantha Benu, is how they pronounce it on the evening news. Ben, that is a U-E. So Ben U-E, so woo. I don't make this up. That's how they pronounce it. I listened to it 12 times to see how they were actually pronouncing it, but that's how they pronounced it. So the 911 caller is Samantha Benu. She says that he had ordered her dinner at McDonald's and that the food was made incorrectly, and they said they were going to remake it, but they never remade her food for her. And when the police asked if she assaulted Sarah L., she said, I reached across the counter and threw the nuggets at her when she refused to remake my meal in a timely manner. I then got into an argument with her, and she tried to slap me, but I struck her first. So the police took the report, went back to the McDonald's, and looked at the surveillance camera. What they found was Samantha had gone into the McDonald's, had ordered the food. Sarah had taken her order, and she filed a complaint with the manager. She assaulted the manager and then left the establishment and went home and called 911 to get the police to take the report of being defrauded. Samantha, back to her. That's how twisted this is. Samantha is the regional manager for McDonald's. She had a beef with Sarah, the store manager, and Samantha the regional manager assaulted the actual employee of the store she had a problem with. She asked her to step down, but when she made the meal after they had their little one-on-one conversation, she assaulted her. So the regional manager of McDonald's, who works for corporate, assaulted the store manager and then tried to file a 911 complaint to get her fired that way. Sarah was arrested and charged with assault battery, and she was terminated as regional manager of those McDonald's stores. Number 2, Janet Hawthorne. Janet Hawthorne was arrested for possession of meth and possession of a firearm after she walked up to a gentleman and tried to sell him either meth, coke, or weed at a church gathering concert. So it was a benefit concert where they were raising money for a church to build and renovate a gathering space that the church has. And what made this interesting was it was a celebration of life. In case you're not familiar with celebration of life gatherings, Celebration of Life is a recovery program for alcoholics and those going through drug rehab. And she was the person who was in charge of taking the money in for ticket sales at the door. So people were coming in and they were paying $10, $5. It was a donation only to go get in to see 3 Christian bands. And the person who she tried to sell the methamphetamines to was an undercover officer. If she would have shown up to any of the last group of planning meetings, she would have known that the security that they hired, and they had to by law, because any gathering over 100 people in their community there in California requires that they have security work the door and venue. She would have known that this person was an off-duty police officer who was volunteering. Next one is from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Raymond Dodge. Raymond Dodge was arrested for DUI after he drove to a bar on July 4th, 2017. The doorman at the bar would not, in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, would not let him in because he was too drunk at that night at the nightclub there. He said, "No, dude, you're wasted. I can't let you in here." And when he refused to allow him in, he went up to another individual who was waiting in line and said, "Can I borrow your cell phone?" He said, "What do you need a cell phone for?" He goes, "I need to call the police. They're discriminating against me because of who I am." Not making any sense. Nobody would give him a cell phone. He then walks to the end of the parking lot where his car is. Excuse me. A friend of his just happened to be pulling into the parking lot at that time, and he convinces him to borrow his cell phone. He borrows his cell phone. He calls the police. The police come to take a report of discrimination, that he's not being allowed into this bar, and they're discriminating against him for ungodly whatever reason, and he's refusing to leave the parking lot. So they're basically just there to keep the peace. When they get there, and they ask him several times, "What'd you say? You drove here? Okay, all right. So you drove here?" And knowing that, I mean, this man is obviously very intoxicated, and they finally, said, "Hey, you know what? Before they're obviously not going to let you in, but for us to let you drive home, we need to make sure you're safe to drive." They did a breathalyzer on him. He was 3 times the legal limit. He was arrested for DUI because he freely admitted to driving there and was going to leave, via driving away. So next one is from Houston, Texas. Crime doesn't pay. David Hart was arrested for theft for the 9th time. 9 times. 9 times he did the same thing. He stole the exact same thing. With an ongoing dispute between David Hart and his neighbor, who was not mentioned in the report, David had gone over to his neighbor's home, so they're side-by-side homes, and had stolen his garden gnome out of the front of his front garden, and gone over and stolen it and picked it up and walked over to his place and put it next to his porch. He had been arrested 9 times for stealing the gnome over and over again. And the day when the police came to the home to arrest him on the 9th time for the same thing. It just happened to be that 7 of the 9 times the same 2 officers had to take the report, and they asked him, "Why don't you just go buy a gnome?" And he said, "Because that's mine. He stole it from me." When they took the statement from the neighbor said, "No, actually, I moved in here about 20 years ago and I bought the gnome, and he's only been here about 2 years, and for some reason he thinks this is his. And that's why you guys keep on getting called, because he keeps on stealing it." 9 times. How many times do you have to be arrested, David, before you realize it's not your gnome? So the next one is out of San Diego, California. 17-year-old kid out of California had been tagging the downtown area of San Diego with the word Bizzer, B-I-Z-E-R. And when the police were investigating it, they knew that this was serious because the tagging had become more and more aggressive. Instead of just being underneath underpasses and on train cars or mailboxes, they started to find it in the restrooms and in courtrooms in the actual courthouse there. So they knew that they had to catch this individual. And when they went to the home to talk to this 17-year-old, who, because he's a juvenile, they did not release his name. When they went to go talk to him, the front door of his home said it was a solid wood door, and it was stained, and it said Bizzer painted over the clear varnish on the door. And when the 17-year-old came to the door, he was wearing a t-shirt that said Bizzer, and he had paint from spray paint still on his hands. And easy arrest. When the police asked him why he tagged the rest of the town, Bizzer just happens to be his last name in reverse. Nah, not that smart. So this one's out of Tampa, Florida, 2015. Three thieves decided that they were going to steal an ATM machine. And when they went and wrapped chains around it and then tied it to a truck, that they kept on yanking and yanking. They could not get that ATM machine to move. And so they decided to back all the way up to it and get a running start, and maybe that would yank it off of its concrete foundation. And so it's like a drive-through ATM. And so it's not like inside of a store, but it's like a drive-through ATM. And they tried and tried and tried, and they could not get the ATM to budge at all off its mound. And so when they did that running start, it ripped the axle off of the truck. And so the truck was inoperable. They couldn't drive that truck away. They couldn't detach the chains, and and then take the axle, because the axle was detached from the vehicle, wasn't going to go anywhere. So they left. They went home to have a couple brewskis and think about their alibi. And they ended up drinking so much they passed out in the backyard. Five individuals total. And when they went to the home of Jonathan Grimes, age 19, and there in Fort Lauderdale, on the follow up on the report, all of them were still wearing the same clothes that they were seeing in the surveillance camera on the crime, and all of them were arrested for the trying to steal the ATM machine. The actual charges vary from individual to individual there, so I'm not going to go through all five of them. Next one, Stephen Diaz wanted to have drinks with his friends and stopped in a supermarket to shoplift a bottle of wine. While he was there, he trying to make his getaway, a plainclothes theft prevention officer approached him at the door and said, "Hey, you need to pay for that bottle of wine and put it back." And he said, "No." He did a little scuffle, and he tried to exit the store, and he punched the security officer as he was leaving the supermarket. Just happens to be Safeway store, and I don't know if they have a Safeway grocery store around you, wherever you are. But he punched him, and it turns out that the individual he punched is a black belt and a professional Taekwondo instructor who moonlights as theft prevention officer at night. Not very smart there, Stephen Diaz. Next one is out of Tacoma, Washington. Christopher Wilson, age 25, came up with a plan to steal several $1,000s worth of tools from Home Depot. And he was actually successful at it. His plan was to, as the truck pulled up to Home Depot to unload the merchandise from the semi on pallets, that he would just go and steal the stuff right off of the pallets while they weren't looking. He dressed up so he looked like a Home Depot employee and loaded the stuff right onto a cart, and where everybody else was unloading the stuff and then taking it to different departments. He stopped there, and put everything right onto a cart. But instead of going to an apartment to put it away, he wheeled it right back out the door and loaded it into the back of a Chevy Tahoe, and then got away with it. The problem was when they realized all this stuff was missing, they found a couple items in the parking lot next to where that truck was on the surveillance. He dropped 2 bags of methamphetamine and his state-issued identification. Good going, Christopher Wilson. Next one is out of North Carolina. Stephen Porter walked into an express check cashing location and tried to rob the store at gunpoint. But Stephen's not the brightest individual. There's plexiglass in between the actual cashiers and the actual customers. He didn't think about that. So all the employees did was duck down behind the counter, and then these metal things come down over the front of it. So they're basically behind a bulletproof screen. And then when he tried to leave, they push a button and it automatically locks the door. So Stephen was caught in the lobby area and couldn't get out. He got no money, and it turned out that the gun that he was using was a modified BB gun to make it look like a real pistol. So, and that is it. That is Stupid Criminals, the third time. Thank you for joining me today, and you have a terrific day today.